A Tale of Two Fathers.
In the countryside beyond the city, there lived two families. Only a field of birch trees separated the homes. The family on the east side of the field had a father who believed in order. He was a no nonsense kind of man who had a very strict upbringing. The father on the west side of the field wasn't as strict, but he came from a loving family that believed in the strength of charity. When children of both families were very young, they played together under the canopy of the birch trees. When it was time for the children to come home, the father on the east side would whistle loudly, and his children would come running home. If for some reason the children didn't hear his whistle, he would come storming into the trees with a strap of leather to whip the children. In contrast, the father on the west side would walk into the birches and his children would embrace him. They would then walk back towards home together, and he would teach his children various things about the woods and the fields around them. Inside of their homes, the mothers of both families were supportive and took care of day-to-day upkeep. But the atmosphere inside each home was very difficult. In the home on the east side, the children much preferred the liberty of the birches. Inside of their home, they walked on eggshells. They were afraid of upsetting their father. If ever they did something to displease him, he used coarse language and berated their character while complaining about all the things they did or didn't do to make his life hard. His wife seldom smiled and was often found consoling the children. The atmosphere in the home on the west side was very different. The father in this home took delight in spending time with his children. He rewarded them for good behavior and showed interest in their thoughts and opinions. The children had a strong example of the sanctity of marriage in observing the dynamics of how their mother and father interacted, and they looked forward to one day finding the person who was created for them so they could become married and enjoy romantic relationships that would bring joy to their heavenly Father. This family would come together every evening after supper and share stories and dreams with one another. Let us see the eventuality of each family. To them who have ears to hear, let them hear. In time, the children in both houses matured and became adults. In the house on the east side of the birches, the children left home as soon as they were able. Neither of them wanted to live in their father's house for a second longer than they had to. Once the children were gone, the wife left and eventually married another. She chose to escape the abuse that increased as her husband's consumption of strong drink grew with the waxing and waning of each moon. Alone in the house, this man drank his life away. He regretted the way he fathered his family. The land east of the birches became wild and unkept. Thorns and tall grass grew around the house. Passerbys would feel the melancholy aura emanating from a source just east of the birches. The family on the west side of the birches stayed active in the lives of one another. As the father aged, his love only grew for his family. He and his wife loved and cared for each other all the days of their lives. Their children grew up and married, but were never too far from the birches. One of the sons who grew up married a daughter from the family on the east side of the birches. Even though she felt fatherless because of the hollow relationship she had with her father, she found a loving and caring father in her heavenly Father, and her trauma was healed, and she forgave the father of her youth. In time, the descendants that came from the marriage of the son from the west side of the birches and the daughter from the east side of the birches would inherit the house on the west side of the birches and continue perpetuating what the father from the west side of the branches cultivated, a legacy of love. To them who have ears, Let them hear. Birch trees feel all the ways the Father loves you. The West is the direction that feels the forgiveness of the Father.